Oh, jeez, this is taking so incredibly long. I still have all the movies and books and stuff that I read to get through too, and oh my gosh, it's been like 4 days that I've been recording this shit. It's gonna come out late, definitely. Uh, oh, and by the way, yeah, it turns out I am sick with COVID, which I suspected. It came back positive, so that's great. But hey, we gotta get through this. We gotta, keep going. So yeah, I'm gonna get through my movie watch list, which I watched in 2021. And weirdly enough, I actually watched half the amount of movies that I did TV shows, which, movies, obviously, it would take a lot shorter to get through them than watching a full series or a full season of a series. But yeah, I just didn't watch quite as many movies. I don't think I watch... I don't know, I think I like shows better than movies because, you have more time to flesh things out. But anyway, let's get to the movies I watched in 2021. Alright, so once again, apologies for my sore throat, but we still gotta get through this eventually. So, first movie that I watched was Akira. The 1980s Japanese animated film. This film was beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Seriously, there are just some of the most disturbing images I've ever seen out of anything in this movie, but at the same time, the animation is so good. Like, how the hell was this made in the 80s? The animation is freaking ridiculous. Like, every single frame is just so incredibly detailed and it flows together incredibly well. Like, this movie, the production values are just crazy. The art is really good. I have my issue with a few of the character designs. I guess, there's this one character who, looks almost exactly the same as another character, and it's just kind of weird because they share screen time a lot, but it's just, but anyway, despite small gripes, I thought this movie looked amazing, and but beyond the animation though, which is, again, fantastic, there are some pacing issues, I think, with this movie. Apparently, what I looked up is that, the manga that the movie was based on, Akira, it's, the middle section of the manga is, massively trimmed down for the movie. So, and I can definitely understand that, remembering when I watched it, because, the middle section of the movie, completely breezes through plot lines, and character changes happen really fast with not a whole lot of explanation or development, and it's so the thing about Akira is there's a lot of I really like the movie. There's a lot of interesting social commentary, I think, that relates more to Japan, so maybe I'm not as knowledgeable about it, but it's but it is still very interesting. And I really like the beginning of Akira. I really liked the ending sections as well. It's just, it builds to this really very tense climax where everything sort of comes to a head. But again, the middle sections are kind of janky and don't flow together very well. So that's basically my main problem with the movie Akira. But I must stress again, even if the story is kind of poorly constructed, the animation, oh my gosh, it's so good. This is an absolute experience to watch, the movie Akira. I absolutely recommend it just on the basis of the animation alone and what they were able to accomplish. So, yeah. Alright, next movie. So now we're going to talk about the Justice League Snyder Cut. So yes, I did watch this movie. I watched the original Justice League when it came out. I thought the original Justice League was so incredibly bland and boring. It was just there was almost nothing interesting about the original Justice League. It was just such a... It was such a boring film. I don't think it added anything. I didn't like the experience at all. And to its credit, the Snyder Cut of Justice League is definitely a lot better. Better than Batman v Superman 2. I know a lot of people hate it, but I actually did enjoy Man of Steel quite a bit. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the Snyder Cut of Justice League. I will say, the two worst aspects of the Justice League film are still Batman and Superman. I didn't find those two characters particularly interesting at all. Like Superman, much like in the original Justice League, sort of just came back to life, and sort of this Deus Ex Machina, like coming back, and so he felt like a plot device, not a very interesting character. Batman too, like he was just not very interesting in the original Justice League. He isn't very interesting here, and I don't know. It's just like it's weird, like Batman v Superman, which was like the last film, which was not very good, and like the two worst aspects of this film are Batman and Superman. It's just like, even in the Snyder cut. So yeah, didn't really like those two characters. Still not very interesting or good. But however, the Flash and Cyborg definitely are like way more rad in this film. Like they're given way more focus and character development, and like they just do a lot more stuff that's really important. Like it just felt like they were handled so much better in this film than in the original, where they're just like sort of there. And so really like the Flash and Cyborg in this film. Really cool. Honestly, there was better action in this film too. Like I really liked a lot of the sequences more than in the original Justice League. I was very impressed by I was very impressed by some of them. Also, Steppenwolf is an actual character, it turns out. Like you know, he's not an amazing villain in this film, but he's an actual character rather than just like a thing that the heroes have to fight. Like he has this whole backstory of him trying to want to return home, where he was sort of cast down by Darkseid, and I don't know why the original film like cut that out and just made him the blandest, most boring supervillain of all time, who just wanted to conquer for like literally no reason. It's just like but yeah, Steppenwolf is actually somewhat interesting in this film. Who would have guessed? And like he looks more expressive, and actually he looks more terrifying, but also like actually expressive, and like sort of, I don't know, like trying to think of the right word, able to feel for him is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, anyway, by the way, the Flash, like I was saying before, the Flash and Cyborg are much better in this film, and the Flash just like has a bunch of cool scenes that just like were completely cut out of the original Justice League, like the ending scene, the ending of the climax with the Flash, where, you know, I'm not going to spoil it here if you haven't watched the film, but all I'll say is just like, it's as if a million fanboys cried out in excitement and were suddenly satisfied. Like that last scene with the Flash was just so good. Also, the other thing is that scene with the Joker at the end, where it was really weird, kind of out of place, but it was still a really good scene, and I actually really liked Jared Leto as the Joker in it. So, you know, it's weird because it showed like Jared Leto can kind of work as the Joker, you know, if he's given the right material. But it's just that Suicide Squad was so bad that like that was everyone's introduction to the new Joker, and it's just like seriously, Suicide Squad is so bad, you guys. It's such a fucking bad film. Oh my gosh. Overall, Justice League, there are some scenes that definitely go on a little too long, but I think it was a marked improvement from the original Justice League. So I am glad that Zack Snyder got out his vision. I, like many others, was sort of skeptical, like, Batman v Superman, which, you know, he was obviously played a big part in, wasn't the biggest fan of it, but, you know, did like this film more, the Snyder Cut. So, yeah, that's what I thought of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Alright, now we're getting on to talking about the Neon Genesis Evangelion movies. So, the first movie, like, I watched two of them. The first movie is basically just a flashback of everything that happened in the show, and it's like, you know, I don't really see the point of that unless it's like to give fans like just a recap, and I guess it's whatever, like, don't really see why it had to be a movie or anything. But the second movie, The End of Evangelion, is basically the vision that the creator had for the end of the series. I understand, except there's an actual budget for it. So basically, you know, I don't know, like the show was just like running out of funds or whatever by the end of it, and so they had to do this they had to do that whole thing with the ending where it was really weird, and they were trying to like save the budget or whatever. I don't know what happened. I don't know exactly all the details, but it definitely feels like this movie is like what the creator was trying to do with the ending in the series, but couldn't for reasons like probably relating to the budget. But anyway, so yeah, that's the end of Evangelion. And what did I think of the end of Evangelion? Well, I will say this, it's definitely a better resolution than what we got in the show. Like, it feels like there's an actual climax and things are actually happening. Unlike the last two episodes of the show where like the plot just completely goes out the window and like nothing is actually resolved, nothing happens, and it's just like but in this movie, like, you know, Nerve finally gets attacked, you know, Asuka has an actual character like resolution, and like the human instrumentality project is carried out. So it does feel like, it definitely feels like more of a complete ending to the series than we actually got in the series proper. So I do appreciate it for that. But at the same time, like, it's still pretty confusing. Like, I still had a difficult time figuring out what was going on in the end, and I didn't really think it answered a ton of questions. Like, it still left a bunch of things very open-ended and stuff, and really explained a lot of things. So that is something that still bothers me. Like, you know, and like I was saying before when I was talking about the series, like a bunch of people say, well, oh, you don't understand Ava, and it's like, you know, I want a series or a movie that will like make me think. I don't want something to totally confuse me. Like, it's just like when a bunch of things just happening on screen that just like have like no, I just do not understand it whatsoever. Like, for example, basically at the end of the movie, like it shows like a bunch of pictures and you know, images of real life and the movie theater being played in the movie, and it's just like I don't understand what's going on. I, I don't get that. And it's just like a lot of things are very confusing and I don't get them. And it's just like Evangelion doesn't make things clear a lot of the time, and things can be ambiguous, but you can't be totally confused about what's actually happening in this story. And it's just like, but anyway, so in the end, no, sorry, jeez, the COVID. But anyway, but in the end, like, Neon Genesis Evangelion, even if I don't like totally, you know, understand what's going on, it is still, the movie anyway, the end of Evangelion, it is still a very well-produced film, I will say. Like, the animation budget is obviously much bigger than what the show had, and like that come sweet death moment where like the entire human race turns to mush, and like that beautiful but also horrifying music is playing. Like, even if I don't really understand exactly what's going on, it's like a beautiful and horrifying moment, like similar to what was happening in Akira. Like, even if I don't fully understand it, and just like that moment is definitely, I would say, iconic in Japanese animation, where, you know, you guys know I made this whole BoJack Horseman AMV where it was like the Come Sweet Death song, and like it was blocked for copyright, but I really liked that AMV and I worked a lot on it, and because I really like that moment in the movie and that song. But anyway, so a much better ending than the show, but still not an amazing film, I would say. So that's what I thought of the Neon Genesis Evangelion movies. All right, now we're moving on to El Camino, a Breaking Bad film. And you know, I watched the Breaking Bad last year. Technically, I guess it's 2022, so I guess 2 years ago I'm recording this, but whatever. So yeah, El Camino for me, sequel to Breaking Bad, and honestly, I don't think this film was as good as Breaking Bad, like the series. Like, obviously it's hard to follow up a masterpiece, but like this film, El Camino, was just very slow for me. The plot sort of just plodded along, not really moving very fast, and it focused a lot on like flashbacks. There were like these really big extended flashbacks that I don't think were always entirely needed, and I don't really think needed to be that long. And it's just like, so that is a problem I have with this El Camino movie. Basically, you know, the plot of the movie is Jesse, of course, is trying to escape the law, you know, after he escaped from the neo-Nazis. And, you know, Jesse's a very good character, but I don't know, I don't really think this film needed to be made, necessarily. I don't really think I needed to, like, see what happens after he, you know, escapes. And it's just like, there were some cool and tension-filled moments, but I just feel like there was, like I said before, there was a lot of padding in this movie, and it just wasn't up par with what the show portrayed, in my opinion. So, I don't know. It's just like I felt like El Camino was a little bit of a disappointment. Don't think it needed to be made necessarily. Uh, at least we do see Jesse get like a semi-happy ending in the end, where he's moving to Alaska and everything, and finally getting away from everything. And good thing Jesse got to Alaska before the blue meth turned everyone into zombies. I mean, just make the shared universe canon, AMC. Seriously, I want to see a Better Call Saul sequel about him trying to become a lawyer in the zombie apocalypse. Okay, so we need to see that. That's the real crossover we need. Anyway, all right, that's what I thought of. That's what I thought of El Camino. Joker. Yes. So I didn't really not. I was not really planning to watch this movie, Joker, but I heard like really good reviews about it, so I did end up buckling down to watch it because I was just like, because here's the thing, it's like, what? It's kind of ridiculous because we just got a new Joker with like Jared Leto, who's just like terrible. At least he wasn't Suicide Squad, and it's just like, okay, do we really need another Joker like in this whole other disconnected franchise? Like DC was honestly a mess. Like when this was going on, but honestly, yeah, Joker, it was really good. I really liked this movie. It was very well. It was very well paced, very well constructed. It definitely had a lot of social commentary going on about like how people are sort of left behind in society, and how that creates a lot of problems, and like how it was sort of taking a very critical interpretation of like rich people and like the Wayne family, and I really like that aspect of it. It was pretty interesting and not something you often see in superhero movies. And it's like it's really not even a superhero movie, honestly. It's just sort of like a character study. So it definitely reinterprets and reimagines a lot of aspects of the Joker, where it's very different from previous interpretations, but it really works for the story it's trying to tell. And we live in a society, all the memes with that, and like but yeah, what's his name? Jeez, I can't remember. Blanking on the actor's name, but whoever plays Walking Phoenix. I'm saying Walking Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix. He's definitely. I did like his portrayal of the Joker much more than Jared Leto. Obviously, like Jared Leto was sort of good in that scene in the Snyder cut, but still. Even so, I still think I do prefer Joaquin Phoenix. He brings a very interesting edge to the Joker, where it's just like sort of, he is an empathetic character in many ways, but you can also see how he could be like terrifying as well. And like I said before, there are some very intense scenes in this movie, like definitely where the audience is like very on edge, and I liked a lot of the twists. Like for example, the Joker, like he's an unreliable narrator, where that was a really interesting thing I thought about the film, where like there's this whole girl that basically throughout the film it's just really weird, where the Joker is like in love with this girl, and she seems to like love him back for some reason, but then it turns out, oh, that was all in like the Joker's head, and he was imagining it whenever he was in like times of stress. So that was really interesting, where we were seeing an unreliable narrator. Of course, that makes you question other aspects of where we were seeing in this film from his perspective. And like, oh man, that you get what you deserve scene in the end, that was a really like fantastic scene. And I love the fact that the Joker wasn't even planning to kill Murray in the end, because he was just planning to off himself and go out with the bang. But then what he heard, what like Murray was saying in the end, that's when he decided to, kill him in the end. So yeah, I really liked that scene. Some of the, a few of my criticisms, some of the editing of the movie was weird at times. Some of the scenes kind of dragged on, and like, some of the stuff also that happened was a little bit unbelievable. Again, you have to go into the whole unreliable narrator thing, where can you really trust everything that's happening in the film, like, because it's from the Joker's perspective. But at the same time, I don't know, but It's also a little iffy that, you know, this mentally ill guy is portrayed as like a serial murderer by the end of the film. So that's, yeah, you know, maybe not, maybe a little problematic, but, you know, overall, a very good film, The Joker is. And I think it would be very interesting to see a sequel to this movie, like, because where it could sort of explore, like, if there was to be a sequel to Joker, you could sort of explore the social realities of like vigilantism in Gotham City, where like, and the problems that Batman would create in Gotham in reality. Because, like I said before, this movie takes a very critical look at like the Wayne family and how, where basically in the past the Wayne family was like, oh, these were like this great philanthropic family who was like helpful to everyone, and like but in this movie Thomas Wayne is just an asshole. So it would be interesting to see if there would be a sequel to Joker, where showing like would Batman like be shown in the light of what he actually might be for the city if movies were being realistic, and the social harms that his vigilantism would realistically cause. So that, I feel like that's a very interesting idea. So you know what's weird? I watched 2 DC movies this year. I mean, the year of 2021, but I didn't watch any movie. But I didn't watch any Marvel movies, despite proclaiming to be a Marvel fan. Like, what the hell? I need to get Disney Plus. But anyway, that's what I thought of the Joker. Should I just say Joker? Is this Joker? So anyway, that's what I thought of Joker. All right, next movie, Escape from Planet Earth. This movie was pretty bland and boring. The thing is, like, so what happened is I actually rewatched it from when I was a kid. You know, I rewatched it on Netflix, and like when I was a kid, you know, I watched it and I thought it was fine. And now as an adult, I don't really find very many things interesting about it. You know, basically all the characters, like the alien characters that Gary meets on the planet Earth, like they pretty much have no depth to them and are just these wacky, quirky characters that he meets, and it's just like basically nothing else for them. So that's a problem. Definitely the main characters between what's his name, Gary and Scorch are basically just very cliche in a lot of ways. You know, the typical dynamic of you know, the brother being this one brother being this really stupid musclehead, and the other being like the brains, and it's just like very cliche in a lot of ways. Like, the other thing that bothered me about this movie, like Escape from Planet Earth, is just that there are these scenes which just have like no point. It seems like just add nothing, and it's just like very confusing why they're there. Like, for example, like I was saying before, the aliens that Gary meets on Planet Earth are just kind of like, they're there. They're these quirky characters, but basically have no character development, no arcs, like nothing really interesting about them. And instead of scenes of like fleshing them out and trying to make them interesting, like there are scenes like, for example, where the main character Gary meets these rednecks in this 7-Eleven and or some other restaurant, I don't know, but it's just like, what was the actual point of that scene? It adds nothing, and it's just like, because that was the scene that was shown in I remember when I was younger, that was the scene that was shown in like all these trailers where you know, the Gary was like meeting these humans, and it was just like this quirky, funny interaction. But it's just like, that's not what the movie's about at all, and that scene just adds absolutely nothing. So why was it there? There was like this food fight in the cafeteria when you know, Gary and Scorch was taken prisoner. Like, why was that there? It didn't really seem to add anything. There was stuff about this movie that just made no sense. Like, for example, how did the bad guy human get an alien dating site and convince this woman to give him the power to blow up a planet? I don't understand it. It's just like, what? It's this movie's just like very confusing and just like not very good. I will say one thing I did like about this movie is how like Gary, you know, the nerd guy, was actually the one with like a wife and kids, while his brother Scorch like didn't know how to women. What? Yeah, anyway, it's just like I don't know. Yeah, I did find that interesting because it's sort of like an inversion of the common trope of like the virgin nerd or whatever. So I did find that kind of interesting. So, but apart from that aspect of it, just didn't really. I don't know. The other thing is, of course, the movie is about how, you know, basically the main plot of the movie, as I said before, it's between this you know, musclehead, kind of stupid brother, and between this more like sort of physically weak, but nerdish brother, like the smart guy. And the movie definitely does, with the nerd character as the main character, it does hold up intelligence as a virtue, which, I like. I think intelligence is very important. But, I don't know, it also seems to have, like, a mixed messaging, because it also seems to, like, give the message that, oh, you shouldn't, like, it's weird, because the movie also seems to be supporting the message that, oh, you shouldn't wait and try to think things through first, because, like, this movie is, like, really critical of when Gary was, like, he doesn't immediately go and rescue his brother on Earth, and it's like, even though he told him not to go, and his son's like, oh, you're, like, a loser, Dad, you're, like, not going to rescue your brother immediately on this, like, incredibly dangerous planet where you get captured, and it's just like, I don't know, it's weird to me, and it's just like, I don't know, but, anyway, didn't like this movie very much, didn't think it was very good, just think a very bland, uninspired kids film, so that's what I thought of, Escape from Planet Earth. Alright, Turbo. So, yeah, the movie about the Fast Snail. This is also a pretty bland and boring kids film. Again, it's one that I did watch when I was younger, and I'm sort of rewatching it now as it went on to Netflix. So yeah, didn't really like this film. I don't think it's quite as bad as Escape to Planet Earth, but it's still not very good. The animation was okay, honestly. Like, the main character, Turbo, like, he's just a relatively bland, guy who wants to, like, go fast and, like, achieve his dreams. It's, like, pretty cliche. His brother is, like, his obstacle, I guess, and it's just, like, constantly trying to ward him away from his dreams. It's, like, I don't know, it's just, like, none of the other side characters, again, are really given, much depth to them. The villain, the mean racer guy, is honestly, like, laughable. He turns from a pretty nice but egotistical dude to, like, this cartoonishly evil guy who tries to kill Turbo. And it's just so boring. It's so ridiculous. It's, like, not interesting. And it's, like, what was so interesting about, like, the idea of a fast snail? Like, oh, it's a fast snail. Oh, my gosh. It's, like, such an interesting idea. We need to make a whole movie about this. Of him, like, discovering himself and going to race in NASCAR. And, like, what? Who came up with this movie? It's so incredibly, like, uninspired. It's like, oh my gosh, a fast snail. Like, it's very gimmicky. It's just a very boring story about a snail competing in NASCAR. And, like I said, none of the other characters are particularly interesting. Also, nothing. Here's one thing that, I never really hear anyone, I don't know. Here's one thing that, really bothered me about this movie. And it's like, the speed of the snails in this movie is, like, very inconsistent. Like, in one scene, it'll take, like, the characters 15 minutes to, 15 minutes to, like, travel 1 meter. But in the next scene, it'll be, like, the characters can move the space of an entire room in, like, 3 minutes. And it's just, like, what is with the speed of the snails in this movie? It doesn't make any sense. Just very inconsistent throughout the whole thing. And that was something that really bothered me. So, yeah. Turbo, not really the greatest film. Didn't really like it very much, so that's what I thought of Turbo. Alright, now we're moving on to Rango. That movie about the chameleon in the desert, and, like, there's gonna be a picture of it up on the screen. But anyway, so this movie is really weird. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't really like it that much, and as an adult, yeah, I don't know. I still don't love it, really. I mean, like, I know a lot of people online, there are a lot of people who really like this movie, and it's just, like, say, oh, it's so brilliant and stuff, and, like, I don't know, I don't know, I didn't really love it as much as other people do, I don't think. First off, I will want to say about Rango, the animation is, like, it's really good. Like, it's incredibly detailed, and the animal characters look, like, very unique compared to animal characters in, other animated movies. Like, they're very, this movie definitely has a very grimy look to it, a very gritty look. Unlike other movies that are trying to look very polished and everything look very nice. And I did appreciate that aspect of Rango, definitely. This movie has a lot of edge to it, surprisingly. Like, it definitely earns that PG rating. Like, the characters swear and talk about violence, like, quite a bit. So that is another thing I appreciated about the film, where, I don't know, but here's the thing with Rango, the story just, like, wasn't really very interesting to me, to be honest. Like, one thing that confused me is, like, why were the characters going on this journey, like this whole journey to get the water back, but they only had 7 days left of water in the first place? Why were they spending like so much time on this dead end journey to like get the water back that was stolen when, you know, they should have probably been searching for a way to get new water? And it's just like that part was very confusing to me. The whole story about like Rango, the main character, where he's like this kind of loser who's like acting throughout the whole thing to try to put on this appearance of being tough, and it's just like, I don't know, I didn't really find the main character Rango to be the most interesting of characters. I don't know, it's just you know, I will say though, there were confusing aspects of the story that when I first watched it as a kid that I definitely do understand better as an adult. Like, for example, the villain's whole plan of trying to buy up all this land by, you know, controlling the water supply. And I definitely did understand his plan better as an adult now that I know of, like, you know more about what certain politicians try and how, and business people try and how they're sort of portraying that in this movie. So that was somewhat interesting. Sorry, jeez. Oh my gosh, this COVID thing is ridiculous. But anyway, so there is stuff that's really, there's just stuff that confused me. Other stuff that like seems inconsistent about this movie. Like, for example, like you know, Rattlesnake Jake, that character who just kind of shows up, and basically what happened was at the end where Rattlesnake Jake is basically threatened by the main villain, you know, the turtle guy, with a gun, but like Rattlesnake Jake is enormous. Like, he's fucking huge. You expect me to believe that like a gun being pointed as like this little shriveled up turtle guy is like gonna do anything to this giant snake? And it's just like, and that's so confusing too, because like Rattlesnake Jake wasn't even flinching at all when Rango was holding a gun to him before. So it's just like, you know, I did not understand that moment at all, really. You know, didn't really make much sense. And at the end of the movie, Rango and Rattlesnake Jake just depart each other with, you know, respect as two legends. Like, even though it's kind of weird because like Rattlesnake Jake apparently murdered a bunch of people in the town, and it's just like, wouldn't they still really hate him a lot? And it's just like, I don't know. I know a bunch of people love this film, but I don't really think it's for me. Even though I didn't dislike it, you know, I was somewhat entertained, but it's just like, I don't know, it's not for me. I didn't love it. So that's what I thought of Rango. Alright, so now we're talking about ParaNorman, and this movie, much like Rango, when I watched it as a kid, you know, thought it was okay, didn't love it. Unlike Rango, though, I really love this movie now. I really loved ParaNorman while I was watching it. I think it has like a fantastic message and a great way of portraying that message with like a really cool twist in the movie, you know, where it was all about like, you know, basically the movie was all about like how, you know, the movie was sort of about prejudice and like how people treat people different, and like the climax of this movie basically revolved around, really good climax by the way, and it was kind of all about like how do we, you know, end the cycle of hatred, like, you know, like Attack on Titan, but not pessimistic. And it was just like, you know, I don't know, really great message, and one that you don't necessarily, I don't know, I guess you do sometimes see it in kids films, but like it's really cool how like you know, the monsters in this movie, like, it's not just, what I will say, this movie definitely has some scary points, but it's just like, it's definitely not a straight like kids horror film, because there are like scary aspects, but the whole point of it is to like not be so initially like terrified of what you don't understand. And it's just like, I found that aspect to be really interesting of the movie, because, you know, oftentimes there's like, oh hey, we gotta beat up the monsters, and it's just like, but this movie showed how, oh, in like beating up these things which you consider to be monsters, like, you sort of become monsters in a way. And I really like that. This movie, another thing about this movie, it's really funny too. It definitely earns its PG rating, much like Rango. Like, there's some pretty risque humor, and like some, like I said before, some legitimately scary scenes. It's just like, you know, some scenes like, you must swear to me, and it's just like, you mean like the F word, uncle? Yeah, it's like, I don't know, yeah, ParaNorman definitely risque. Wish more movies were like ParaNorman. Honestly, you know, I really liked the main character Norman. You know, he was just a very likable character. Really liked everything he was going through and his, you know, perspective on things and him trying to change things in the end. Really liked Neil too. Like he's just a very likable character as well. Uh, Honestly, I'm planning to watch Coraline as well. It wasn't on Netflix, so I didn't get to watch it yet. But you know, Coraline, obviously, I think it was made by the same people, and it looks interesting as well. So definitely planning to watch Coraline. You know, because you know, I'm sort of getting into ParaNorman. Basically, got me back into like stop motion, like kids horror films. Just, yeah. Anyway, definitely liked. So definitely like ParaNorman. You know, it's interesting about ParaNorman because like while I was watching it, I was actually giving a platelet donation where basically, if you guys don't know, a platelet donation is different than a regular red blood donation where you have to wait for like 2 hours where they suck out all your blood and then filter the platelets and then give you back your blood minus the platelets. And so yeah, you have to sit there for like 2+ hours. But while I was there, they let you watch Netflix while you're there. So basically, I looked, okay, I'm gonna watch ParaNorman, and it made the experience of giving platelets like that was the most pleasurable platelet donation I've ever done because it was just like you know, watching a really good film that I really liked. So honestly, ParaNorman might be my favorite film that I watched this year outside of maybe The Joker. So yeah, really like ParaNorman. Shrek 2 or Shrek the Second, I guess. So yeah, Shrek 2. You know, this is also. This is a movie that I'm not watching for the first time. I watched it when I was a kid, and when I was a kid, I was like, you know, I enjoyed it much more than the first Shrek, and that is the case when I was rewatching it because yeah, I think this movie is like way better than the first movie. Like honestly, I just thought the first Shrek for me was like, it was okay. It had some good aspects, but like wasn't really fantastic for me the first movie. But I really liked the first movie. This movie was I don't know. Shrek 2 is just like it's really funny. I really like the story. It has a lot of like heart to it, and the conflict with you know, Shrek and Fiona and the Fairy Godmother is just very interesting. I just really like this movie. It's just very well put together movie, and it uses the Shrek character and the Shrek universe very well. You know, it's interesting because Shrek, you know, isn't even Shrek throughout a lot of the movie, where he is like transformed into this by the formula. He's transformed into this you know, man, basically. But it really is a testament to like how the movie trusted that okay, even though our like even though our main character like doesn't look like what the main character is supposed to look like, you can definitely still see that it's him and really get invested in what he's going through, even though he doesn't look like how Shrek normally looks like. And I really think that was a chance that the creators were taking, but they did, you know, respect their audience to like have him go through this really interesting character arc. And you know, where he's like yeah, because I just really liked Shrek's arc in this movie, where he's very subconscious about himself and thinking, you know, he isn't as good of a partner as he should be, and like you know, but it goes back to the themes of sort of the first Shrek movie that were that are more pronounced in this movie, about like you know, sort of being who you are, and that being different is not necessarily like a bad thing, even though society might you know, judge you for that. And I don't know, I really like this movie. You know, also this movie introduced Puss in Boots, and one of my favorite DreamWorks movies in its own right, honestly. Like you know how they made a spin-off movie for Puss in Boots, which I actually watched before I watched the Shrek movies, which is weird, but I don't know, I really like that movie. I think it's very underrated, but yeah, so like the movie for that as well. Also, of course, the climax with that I Need a Hero scene will like always be incredibly iconic. Definitely had a much better climax than the first Shrek movie. So yeah, I really liked Shrek 2. So that's what I thought of the movie. The Matrix. Oh. All right, so basically, in regards to The Matrix, yeah, I never watched The Matrix until now, until this year, the end of the year actually, where basically what happened was, you know, I used to be a big fan of these Nostalgia Critic, and he made these movie reviews of like the 3 Matrix movies, and he didn't really seem to think the movies were very good, so that sort of steered me away from like they're getting bad reviews from this guy. Might not want to check out The Matrix, but plus I know a lot of people like in general don't like the sequels, so. But anyway, so I finally was convinced to watch The Matrix by, like, basically my dad said, oh, you gotta watch The Matrix, it's so good, so finally I did buckle down to watch The Matrix with him by the end of the year in December, and, honestly, I thought The Matrix was a pretty good film. First of all, it starts off really good. I would say the first act of The Matrix, the first 40 minutes, is the best. Like, where it's just a very, very tense and very well put together beginning, where, like, Neo is, like, trying to figure out, and the audience by extension, what is going on. Like, it's just like, the film is just like, the first 40 minutes of it, like I said, are just very tense, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know that, like, everything is happening in a computer world yet, even though I knew, because I knew spoilers, but even so, like, it's just a very, very tense, very, very exciting first 40 minutes, where it slowly builds everything up to the final reveal, where Neo is, he's hooked up to this pod, and it's just like a very, very disturbing scene where, he gets free and everything, but, yeah, so then, basically, it continues on from there, where you do get a lot of great action, especially in the latter half of the movie, where, a lot of really great set pieces that I really liked. I have to say, I do think it is sometimes feels like a little bit overly choreographed, but that is a problem I have with the action. But overall, it is still really good, really effective story, really, I could always tell, the movie it dealt with a lot of very high concept ideas, but, it had a very good way of portraying them, and I could always tell, what was going on, and, unlike how I've heard, the next two movies, 2 and 3, can kind of be very confusing for the audience to tell what's actually going on, I always really tell what was going on in this movie, and it was just, very well put together, really like the story. The effects could look somewhat dated, the acting was also very wooden at points. It sort of had that, very unemotional style where, and the other thing, one of the main problems with this movie, I did not buy the romantic chemistry between Neo and Trinity at all. Like, that was one of the most boring ships I have ever seen, honestly. Like, did not like Neonity or Trinitio or whatever their ship name is, but yeah. The other thing I really disliked about this movie, I thought it was very good until the ending. I did not like the ending at all. Like, it's just, so weird, because, they have... Basically, what happens is Neo is trying to escape the Matrix, after he frees, Morpheus, and, he gets killed by Smith, but then just comes back to life, because why? Because, Trinity loves him, so the power of love brings the main character back to life. It's such a fucking cop-out. It doesn't make any sense. And just, gains Jesus powers immediately because, he's the savior. He's the big savior. And it's just, I don't know. It's just, I did not like the ending at all. I thought it was a complete cop-out, Deus Ex Machina, where just, the main character coming back to life through the power of love. It's, ridiculous, stupid. I honestly really... I think I would have liked it more. I think it would have been a much better ending to the film if Neo had just stayed dead, honestly, because here's the thing, the Oracle says, that Neo is not the one, and, would have been an interesting twist if, Neo actually wasn't the one, and he was just, this talented, manipulator who could, do all these things, but he wasn't the one, then the sequel movies would be, focused around finding the real one, or whatever, and it's just, so, I don't know. So, did not really like the ending, but overall, I did still think that The Matrix was a good film overall. Would recommend. Alright, now we finally get to the last film I watched this year, which was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. So basically what happened with Mr. Peabody and Sherman, this was a movie that came out a few years ago. I watched this movie because I didn't have anything else to watch on Netflix other than ParaNorman when I was doing a platelet donation. Like I said, it takes 2+ hours. ParaNorman had finished, so I went on to, Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I watched it as a kid, so sure, I'll rewatch it on Netflix. So basically, that's what happened. And so anyway, it's Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Definitely did not enjoy it as much as ParaNorman. I don't really think it's a very good film. Basically, here's the big problem with here's basically my main problem with Mr. Peabody and Sherman, or one of the main problems. The entire plot of this movie is based off of inconsistent character writing. So basically what happens is, so Mr. Peabody, the dog guy, he's portrayed as, Jesus throughout this film. He can do literally anything, and he never makes any mistakes. And then, the guy somehow forgets to make sure the Wayback Machine is charged before traveling to the past. It's like the entire conflict of this movie, where the characters are trying to get back from the past after they rescue what's her face, Penny. It's completely contrived, because it's just like, basically what happens, the Wayback Machine like runs out of charge, and they have to find a way to like charge it up again and get it back to the present. But it's just like Mr. Peabody, like he didn't think that, oh, maybe we should charge it before going back to the past. He didn't consider that at all. It's like completely ridiculous for such an incredibly smart character who like never makes any mistakes throughout the movie to make that massively colossal mistake. It doesn't make any sense. So that's like a main problem with the movie, because the entire plot of the movie hinges on a massive plot hole and character inconsistency. So that's something that's really bothers me. The other thing is the characters, like Mr. Peabody, he's fine, but like I said before, he is a little like too perfect in a lot of ways. I don't know, there's this whole character conflict with him, considering he hasn't been like the greatest dad to Sherman, even though, like, I don't know, he's pretty good, man, and he's better than a lot of dads out there. But yeah, so Sherman, his character, honestly, he's a pretty annoying kid. I didn't really like him very much. He constantly screws things up and nearly destroyed the space-time continuum, and just like constantly makes all these mistakes all the time. It's just like, it's hard for him. Oh, geez, sorry, you guys. It's hard for me to really care about him that much. Meanwhile, Penny, the girl character who's introduced, I just found her to be one of the most unlikable characters I have ever seen. I hated Penny in this movie. I mean, like, it's just like, oh my gosh. It's like, what's so strange is that for some reason, like, Sherman, the boy, like starts having a crush on her out of nowhere that was not set up at all. And, like, even though she ruthlessly bullied and physically assaulted him and almost kills him in this movie, and it's just like, it's just like, what? This character is, like, not being shown as, like, the very reprehensible person and child that she is. And it's just like, I did not like her at all. I found her to be incredibly, incredibly unlikable. Just hated Penny in this movie, honestly. And it's just like, the story of this movie also is not interesting. Like, the plot of, like, going back in time has basically nothing to do, almost nothing, with the conflict of this movie, which is that, Mr. Peabody is trying to prove to this Mrs. Grunion woman that he can be a proper caretaker to Sherman, but, she doesn't want to hear it because she's prejudiced to dogs. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just like a weird plotline to me, because, like, I feel like it's trying to say, this message of, like, tolerance, and, like, we should accept these different, we should accept this person. But like, here's the thing, it's weird because, like, in real life, dogs cannot take care of people. So it's just like, is this movie trying to say, we should not be prejudiced to dogs who are, like, trying to take care of boys? And it's just like, what? And it's just like, again, I just feel like there's no reason for this Miss Grunion character to be as, like, bigoted or whatever against Mr. Peabody as she is, because, like, he seems to be a fine caretaker for Sherman. It's just like, hold on. I just realized something. Was this movie, like, supposed to be an allegory for gay adoption? I don't know, weird. Never considered that before. But anyway, regardless of the allegory or what it's trying to say, this movie, I don't know, it's just like, it's just not really very good. The jokes in this movie are very predictable a lot of the time, the same ones you would expect from going back in time through all these famous historical events. Like, I did not laugh very much in this film. The climax of this movie is also so stupid. Like, basically, this space-time continuum is, like, being ripped in half, where, at the same time, this Miss Grunion person is, like, again, trying to take Sherman away from Mr. Peabody, which, like, she can't just do, I don't think. Like, I thought there was this whole thing where Sherman was going to be, like, confiscated from Mr. Peabody in, like, a court of law, so I don't... Very confusing for me, but it's just like, and there's this whole thing in the end where basically all these characters stand up and say, oh, well, Mr. Peabody's, sure, maybe Mr. Peabody's dog, but I'm a dog too, and it's, what? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm a dog too, and what? The climax of the movie is so stupid. It's just, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, obviously it's based off an original cartoon, I think, you know, it's an adaptation. Did not like it very much. You know, not a very good movie. I will say though, this line from the movie really did crack me up, honestly.
Nobody move! Sherman, I've got to get you out of here before you touch yourself.
Alright, now, finally talking about books and comics that I read this year, where first book we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the A Song of Ice and Fire books, which, you know, the works by George R. R. Martin. I said before I watched Game of Thrones, the series with my dad, and basically what happened is, you know, I went through these at the time that I was watching, you know, Game of Thrones with my dad, where basically we were getting to season 5, and by the time of season 5, you know, the story was sort of going past the book material. And so that's where I sort of started picking up the books, where I was reading them at the library at school. So, you know, got to read them for free. So that was cool. And read through them very fast. Like, I read through all of them in 3 months. So, you know, despite how long they are, which, you know, gives you a sense of, first of all, how much of a disciplined reader I am, you know, just bragging a little, but also just how good these books are, and just, like, I couldn't put them down. But, so yeah, basically, so yeah, definitely really liked the A Song of Ice and Fire books, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, basically I'm going to go through the books from what I thought the worst or my least favorite books were to my favorite books of the series. So, you know, obviously the first one we're going to go through is the In A Song of Ice and Fire is A Feast for Crows, which was the 4th book of the series and was my least favorite, or the one I liked the least, at least. So, yeah, Feast for Crows, the 5th best book. I don't think that's terribly controversial. I know it has its fans, for sure, but for me, it just was the least interesting one. The main problem with Feast for Crows, in my opinion, is, like, the 3 main-ish characters from were missing from this book, like Jon, Tyrion, and Daenerys. They're just, like, not present in this. Yeah, I know Jon was sort of seen a little bit, but it was through, he didn't have any chapters. It was seen through Samuel Tarly's eyes. So, basically, the 3 main characters of this book are Jaime, Brienne, and Cersei. And so the Brienne chapters for me, like, where she was basically going around trying to find Sansa, like, there was some interesting world building and, like, setting up characters, but, like, they just really dragged for me. Honestly, I do not think we needed that many characters focusing on Brienne. Like, I do like her character, but it's just, like, her story is just, like, not that interesting or important to, you know, justify that many chapters dedicated to her. And Cersei is, like, she's kind of an interesting character too, but, like, it was interesting to sort of see inside her head finally for, you know, her not being a POV character in the first 3 books. But, like, Cersei is just too psychotic, honestly, for me to be super invested in, because, like, Cersei is just, like, she's an incredibly unlikable character who constantly does all these terrible things. It's just, like, reading things from her perspective was just, like, oh my gosh, it kind of got tiring after a while, because she just was so psychotic, and it's just, like, more psychotic than the show, honestly. And it's just, like, I do really like Jaime. I honestly did like his character probably the most in this book, because, like, unlike in the show, where basically Jaime's character development just takes a complete pause for a while for some reason, like, in this book, he's just, like, really likable and is going through a lot of character development. It's just, like, really like Jaime's character, really like what they did with him in this book, you know, sort of continuing on his development from the last book, and just, like, really liked everything with that. And you know, I really liked some of the subplots in this book. I really did like. I really liked the Ironborn subplot, honestly. That was very interesting. They completely mangled Euron's character in the show, but he's really good. He's a really good villain in this book. So yeah, I really liked Euron. Honestly, it's weird how Arya and Sansa didn't get much focus. Like, they barely got any chapters in the book, in this book, despite, you know, them being sort of main characters, honestly. Like, it's weird. This book mainly focused on characters who, like, barely got any focus when the book series began. So basically, it's sort of weird in that way, where basically by this point in the story, like, stuff that had, like, basically almost no tie-ins to the first book is, like, getting a lot of focus and a lot of book time. It's just like, so basically, the whole Dorne storyline, leagues better than how it's portrayed in the TV show, but still not amazing or anything. I did really like Duran Martel and his whole reveal with him at the end. You know, the other thing I have a problem with this book is, where are the damn Tyrell chapters, George? Like, I understand why there are no Aaron chapters, because, like, why would anyone want to see inside that little shit Sweet Robin's head? But, why couldn't we get a Marjorie and Loris POVs in this book? Like, it would have been more interesting to give more viewpoints than just Cersei to the King's Landing plotline. And it's just like, because I really like those two characters, and it's like, maybe we get to see the siege on Dragonstone as well. But no, it's just like, I mean, no, it's just like we just get to see the King's Landing plotline through Cersei, and I think it would have been more interesting to also see it from Marjorie's perspective and Loris' perspective and what's going on. It's just like, thought that would have been more dynamic to see in the story. Overall, the book was very slow. I just don't think it needed to be as long as it was, focusing on all the stuff that it did. But I honestly did like, one thing I do appreciate about this book, even though it is very slow and not really the best, is that it did focus on a lot of the perspectives of background characters in the world and how they have reacted to the whole war going on. Like, for example, there's this amazing story of this one character gives in Brienne's chapters where, like, you know, he's talking about his experience in war and how, if he had been born under the rule of another house loyal to a different lord who favored Robert instead of Rhaegar, he would have, like, been fighting on the other side of the war. And it's just like, sort of talking about how, you know, it's sort of criticizing this whole narrative about how, oh, there's these sides in war, and, like, it's incredibly important which side wins. But like, sure, maybe it's important to the main actors fighting in the war, but it's like, what about the common people who are just, like, trying to survive and live their lives? And it's like showing how horrible war can really be. And I really think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about George R.R. Martin's writing. It's definitely, even though it is a story about war, it's very anti-war, and it really showcased that in a lot of ways. This is like so overall, that aspect of the book was interesting, but definitely not my favorite book. My least favorite book of the bunch, Feast for Crows, so that's what I thought about it. My throat is killing me. Oh my gosh. But I gotta get through it. I gotta power through it. I gotta finish. Finally. Still got 13 more to go, but alright, Clash of Kings. So Clash of Kings for me was the fourth best book. I think this book can definitely drag at times. Like, for example, some of the chapters for me just, like, really went on a lot longer than they needed to. Like, some of Theon's early POVs were, like, really stretched out, and, like, where there was this, like, two separate scenes of, like, Theon on a horse talking to these two different characters. It's like, I don't know, just, like, some of the chapters could really drag for me, honestly, in the story. You know, another thing that bothered me about Clash of Kings was Jon and Daenerys' side plots were not really that interesting. Like, even though they were still better, Jon and Daenerys' plotlines, they were still better than the changes they made to them in the show, like, especially Karth. Oh my gosh, what did they do to Daenerys' storyline in the show? But anyway, yeah, those two side plots not really the most interesting. The other thing that bothered me about this George's work in general is, like, where are the Robb Stark POVs? Like, why is he the Stark character who's just, like, he gets flung to the sideline and he doesn't really get any POVs? I don't understand that. He's, like, barely in this entire book. Like, we only see him a bit in the first part where he's talking to Catelyn before she goes to, like, you know, go to see Renly and stuff. And it's just, like, you know, that definitely did bother me. I just, like, why didn't Robb Stark get any POVs in the story? I don't really understand that. But, you know, in the end, though, some of the side plots didn't really think they were the most interesting. But anyway, the main plot line, you know, basically was Stannis the Man is preparing for his fight against Tyrion, who is leading King's Landing against him. That was, like, that obviously is, it's the main plot line, and it is the main draw of this book. It's, like, very interesting how it develops throughout the whole thing with Tyrion taking charge and, you know, Stannis trying to gain his, gain people to his allegiance, even though, you know, obviously he looks like he's pretty down in the dumps in the first part of the war, but seeing him, you know, develop to gaining this massive following to losing it by the end is just, like, very engaging story. Obviously with Tyrion as well. Also the Battle of the Blackwater in this book, it's, like, so exhilarating to read. Like, just, like, I felt like every single emotion and, like, feeling of adrenaline that was going on throughout that entire battle. It's the best battle in the books, honestly, the Battle of the Blackwater, and I felt like it was, even though I love the battle in the TV show as well and how it's directed, like, it's just, like, the book is still even better than the show version. It's just, like, how everything was portrayed, and oh my gosh, it's just so good, the Battle of the Blackwater. That battle was written so well. Anyway, so basically, Another thing I really like about this book is basically how again, like I was saying before with Feast for Crows, how George R. R. Martin just really shows like how horrible and horrifying war is, like basically through Arya's perspective, where she travels through these like war-torn sections of the country where she's just seeing these peasants who have like been killed and their fields burned and how they're starving and like because of this war that's going on. It's just like so yeah, like really like that aspect of it, seeing how horrible war can really be. So again, really like this book. But again, it's just like in terms of, I really like the book. I really liked all the books of this Song of Ice and Fire series, but I just don't really think it was as good as the other books that we're going to get to. So that's what I thought of Clash of Kings. Now we're getting to the third best book, which was, in my opinion, the first book, A Game of Thrones. And this book, it's obviously the starting book, getting everything set up. And I just really liked the book, A Game of Thrones. I thought it had very good pacing. Everything flows very well. I really like the mystery aspect to it. Like, I think it's honestly better portrayed in the book than it is in the first season of Game of Thrones. Because, like, since it's a book with POV characters, it has more limitations. And so it's harder to figure out what's going on. Whereas in the show, like, they added all these different scenes with these non-POVs who were, like, sort of giving too much away, in my opinion, in the first season, where it was just like, whereas in the book, it's just harder to figure out what's going on, and really like that aspect of it, even though I sort of know what was going on, because it's just like, because I obviously knew what happened in the show, but my point is just very good, well put together book where you're trying to figure out what's going on in this, hellhole that is King's Landing, hellhole of politics. And it's just like a very good job setting up the world and the characters and the story. Very good job as a first book. Extremely tightly written. I honestly enjoyed all of the different plot lines very well. I enjoyed what was going on with Daenerys and Jon, and like Tyrion and his travels with Catelyn, and like just really everything about this book. It's just like very good. Really liked it. So yeah, the first book of the series, Game of Thrones, was definitely very good. But still have two books that I think are better, honestly. The second best book for me was A Dance with Dragons. It's the fifth book. I really like this book. The thing about it is that like Jon, Tyrion, and Daenerys, the three pseudo main characters of the story, like they get a lot of page time and a lot of chapters, and it's really great in my opinion, because like I really like those characters, and I really wanted to see more of them, which was something that was utterly lacking in the fourth book, where it's just like sort of separated things by geography. So basically, things I like about this book, Bran, Bran is like, has been one of the most boring characters in the book for like a long time for me, where I just like did not really like his chapters almost at all. But in this book, he's actually pretty interesting, even though he doesn't get a ton of focus, where he's sort of like learning this tree magic and like going back in time and seeing stuff, and it's just like really cool to see, and like how he's sort of going down this darker path, where this really shady guy who I think used to be like Brynden Rivers, I think that's what it was called. But yeah, anyway, him training Bran to like embrace the darkness and like let it be his shield, and really like that aspect of it. So Bran's character was actually interesting. Loved Tyrion's journey throughout Essos. Like it's just completely ridiculous how much great writing and character development for Tyrion was completely cut out from the show. But in the books, we see him go through this like really dark and depressing turn after he killed his father and found out about Tysha, where he's just sort of like it's interesting because Tyrion goes through like a darker. Tyrion's character is so interesting because he's definitely getting darker. He's definitely like taking these more extreme actions and thinking these really nasty thoughts about a lot of people, but at the same time he's also like sort of being humbled at the same time, where he's like sort of having to go through this whole process of learning what it's like to exist in this very cruel world without like the privilege of like being part of this noble family anymore. And it's just like so his character is very interesting, where I feel like it seems like he could go either way, where he could like be redeemed in the future, but also he could go like down an even darker path than he already is and become a villain. So just really like Tyrion's journey throughout Essos. I thought it was really good. Really interesting stuff with Jon and Daenerys as well. Really liked Daenerys' whole story of her trying to, rule Marine, where things were just getting really out of hand, and, with her just trying to make peace as best she can, and where Jon was also just with things getting out of hand at the wall, with him trying to become the best ruler he could be, with, everything going on with the wildlings, and him just, sort of coming into his own, of course, until, the ending, which, the ending with his character didn't turn out too well, so I really loved Theon's story here as well. Really liked what was going on with Theon. Of course, his character arc, possibly one of the best, if not the best, in the book, honestly, weirdly, with him being such an unlikable character when he was first introduced. But, the whole war with the North going on with Stannis the Mance being a complete boss. You're going down, Ramsay. Like, that epic release chapter from Winds of Winter, where he was at Stannis. Oh, my gosh. I love Stannis, you guys. Like, he's so good. He's too good. They butchered him in the show, for crying out loud. Jeez, did not like how he was handling the show. But anyway, Asha Greyjoy also got good amounts of focus in this book. Got quite a few POV chapters. And I like that because I really like Asha. I think she's a really good and cool character. Another thing about this book is this book just has a lot of climaxes that weren't present in the last book. Where Feast for Crows is like, there's really no climax to that book whatsoever. Where just like, there's no resolution too much, but in this book, like there are a lot of climaxes and sort of resolutions to everything that's going on. Like, for example, the amazing scene where Daenerys flies away on Drogon. That scene was like incredibly well written and visceral. Just like loved reading that. Jon, getting a little stabby in the end with Cersei doing her walk of shame. Like it just feels like a good place to end the book, while at the same time, there is still so much that hasn't been resolved in the story. And this book just ends in a bunch of cliffhangers. It's like, but here's the thing though, like, honestly, with this, it does kind of feel like the story is dragging its feet a little bit. Like, it feels like with this book and the last book, like, the story is getting dragged out, like, introducing all these plot lines that maybe don't need to be there necessarily and don't need to be that long, even though they are very interesting. It's just like, because here's the thing, I would not have any problem with Game of Thrones A Song of Ice and Fire being a very long story, but it's just like, I don't know, I don't know if it's ever going to be finished, because it's just like, George R. R. Martin is introducing all these plot lines that are interesting, and I have no problem with, consuming a very long story that's told over many years, but it's just like, are we ever actually going to see the end of this story? Because it's just like, it says, George, come on, man, where is the Winds of Winter, dude? Like, it's been, how can you leave us on so many cliffhangers, and then not deliver for 11 years? And it's like, I finished reading the series like a month ago, and even I'm like impatient for everyone else's sake for like how you still haven't released the Winds of Winter, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just like frustrating because like the guy is an old dude, and it's like he still has one more book that he has to complete after this. It's just like, are we ever gonna actually see the ending to this series? It's just like, have my doubts, but I just really want to see it because I do like everything that these books are setting up, and I really like this book, and I really want to see how it ends. So, because these books are probably the best thing I read this whole year, so in the year of 2021. So I just really interested, but at the same time, it's an incomplete story, so I just really want to see what happens. So yeah, anyway, that's what I thought of Dance with Dragons, though. Now, finally, we are moving on to the best book of the A Song of Ice and Fire series, in my opinion. It was of course, the third book, which is many people's favorite book of the series, A Storm of Swords, which man, talk about a great book. Just like maybe my favorite book of all time that I've read, where just every story was just so incredibly interesting and investing, and a lot of things were like happening. The plot moves, like a lot of developments happen in this book, where like for example, like in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with the Dragons, like it just takes a long time for a lot of things to happen and a lot of things being set up, where in this book, like it just moves very fast. A lot of things happen, and I really did like that because it kept constantly engaged and wanted to come back for more. And honestly, I say every plot line, but again, like, I don't really like Bran. I thought his chapters in this book were pretty boring. Like, he gets more interesting in A Dance with Dragons, but I didn't really care for him here. Just thought his chapters were not very interesting. But and everything else just really great in this book. Jon joining and eventually betraying and fighting against the wildlings, Daenerys becoming a real conqueror and freeing slaves, everything going on with Tyrion in King's Landing, with, the Red Wedding and the Purple Wedding, and, the fight with Oberyn, and just, like, freaking Jaime becoming the best character in the series out of nowhere in this book. Like, this, again, like, this, in my opinion, Storm of Swords is peak, A Song of Ice and Fire. Just really, really good, with its story, like, really good character development, really good story development, just everything about this book, like, again, except for the brand chapters, mwah, oh, chef's kiss. Loved A Storm of Swords, loved reading it. It's a very long book, but it does not drag, and it's just like, just really interesting the whole way through. Just really loved A Storm of Swords, and it's my favorite Song of Ice and Fire book, I would say. Now we get on to talking about A World of Ice and Fire, which, obviously is not a story, but it is sort of just like explaining. It's basically a textbook explaining all the little details of the Song of Ice and Fire world, and I really liked reading it. Because it's such an interesting world. Like, George R. R. Martin puts a crazy fucking amount of detail into, like, every little thing about, like, and it is also crazy how, like, so many things in the world, like, haven't been even touched upon or explored in the actual book series proper. So that's just, like, so I really liked it. I really liked reading this book. I thought it was very interesting. I honestly wish there was something like it for the Avatar world, like, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Because, like, but anyway, I just really liked reading A World of Ice and Fire. Love how much backstory and history there is. But here's the thing, though. Like, I really do appreciate, like, supplemental material like this. But with George R. R. Martin, he tends to write all this, like, supplemental material like this, A World of Ice and Fire, and the Dunk and Egg series, like, before the actual story is finished. Because, like, George, come on. Like, you have to, like, you're focusing on all these side stories, but you have to focus on, like, the main story. Supplemental material is just that, supplemental material. But the main story is just, like, it's not finished, and you're getting yourself obsessed with all these, like, side projects and peripheral material. But, like, your main story is not finished. You have to focus on that. You have to focus on giving your readers, like, actual, like, closure on what the main story is actually trying to tell until you get on to all these other projects. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just like, George, you need to finish the main story. You need to, okay? Just focus, buckle down. It's just like, come on, man. Seriously. Give us these last 2 books. For crying out loud. I don't know. It's just, so yeah. Overall, disregarding that, I did really like this book. It's just very interesting how much cool lore and interesting information ended up getting cut from the TV series. So, anyway, yeah, really like this book. So that's what I thought of it. Moving on to talking about the book Fight Club. I liked this book. I didn't exactly love it. It had some interesting aspects, like the twist of the main character, like having a split personality. That was sort of interesting, but, like, Fight Club, it's an interesting book. Definitely has a lot of interesting social commentary, but, like, I don't know, it's kind of short, honestly, and, I don't know, I just feel like, I read this book, like, offhandedly. It was a school book that we were reading for this literature class that I ended up dropping out of, but, I don't know, it's a good book. I do recommend it, I guess, but it's just like, I don't know, I don't really think I got a ton out of it, so I don't know, that's what I thought about the book Fight Club, so, yeah. So, now we're going to get into talking about an Avatar: The Last Airbender comic, which was Imbalance. I think it's the 6th comic book to come out in the main series of sequel comics to the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And, honestly, this comic was okay. For me, the Avatar: The Last Airbender comics, the first 3 comics I thought were really great. The Rift, the Promise, the Search. The Search was great, like, incredibly good, like, in terms of, Avatar: The Last Airbender comics. And the Rift, I thought the first 3 comic books were really, really good for the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. But then after that, I just felt like the comics books just kind of weren't as interesting anymore. Like Smoke and Shadow, North and South, and now Imbalance. I don't know, I just, they're fine, they're okay, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just like they're not really amazing for me, to be honest. In terms of things that I did like about this book, Toph is a legend as always. Like, just loved her in this book. Like, when she just walks up on the stage and is like, you're under arrest, when Team Avatar is just like trying to deal with the situation with tact, and it's just like, Toph is. Here's the thing though. Here's what I want to talk about. Like a bunch of people say like, oh, in Legend of Korra, it makes no sense that Toph became a cop when she was like so against rules and everything. But like Toph is also like, yeah, sure, she doesn't like any rules for herself, but she is also like very bossy and like she definitely gives off those please step on me officer vibes. So yeah, I can totally see her becoming a police officer, honestly. So I don't really think like that was like a problem with Legend of Korra or anything. But yeah, anyway, for me the story of Imbalance, the comic, it just wasn't very interesting. It's weird for me that the conflict with the Fire Nation isn't really playing a big part, whereas I feel like, I don't know, it's been like 2 or 3 years since the war ended. It just feels like it's weird how like the conflict is like completely grown past the differences between the Fire Nation and the other nations. It's like now completely focused on like the Bender, the conflict between Benders with this sort of newly emerging, starting of the Republic City and stuff. But yeah, anyway, the villains aren't really that interesting or threatening. The comic book just felt like very low stakes, which again, it's just a problem with that I have with a lot of these comic books that happened after the Rift, where I don't know. Just the most interesting aspect of the comic book for me was honestly like the dilemma about whether or not to take the villain's bending way. Like it honestly was a very interesting dilemma because it's like, is it right to take a person's bending away for like crimes? Because it's just like it's sort of a part of who you are. It's just like it could taking away a person's bending, like could it be seen as like, oh, it's basically the same thing as like cutting off a limb. You're disabling a person intentionally for crimes. Is that like morally allowed? Should you do that? And it's just like very interesting dilemma that's going on in this book. So I did like that. So, but anyway, other than that, I didn't really think that Imbalance was amazing or anything. I don't know, but yeah, that's what I thought of the Avatar: The Last Airbender comic Imbalance. Moving on to the Legend of Korra comic Turf Wars, which this was the first Legend of Korra comic that came out. I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of this comic book. I thought it was probably my least favorite comic book of the the Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra main comic book sequels to the shows, and just like honestly, my main problem with Turf Wars was there just wasn't much going on story wise. I mean, like the main villain. So basically, the main story line revolves around like this villain who's pretty uninteresting. Like he's this leader of he's this gangster or whatever who gets possessed by a dragon spirit and becomes like half human, half spirit, and it's just like gets all these powers and whatever. And it's just like I don't know. It's kind of dumb. I didn't find it very interesting at all. And it's just like, obviously, the main thing to talk about with this, because like no one fucking cares about that, because like the main thing to talk about with this comic is obviously like, Korrasami, and yes, it is in this comic, and they are shown to be an actual romantic couple, and it's just like, it's cool that this comic confirmed that they were actually in a relationship, but just like, why didn't they do that in the series? Like, I remember like, I remember when I was first watching Legend of Korra, like when it came to an end in 2014, and like, because I came from a relatively sheltered family, like Catholic conservative family, and I didn't really understand like because everyone's saying oh my gosh, Legend of Korra changed history when like the first gay couple in a cartoon, but I think I don't know, it wasn't shown enough to where like I didn't even realize that that's what they were trying to portray with the ending with like Korra and Asami, and dumb on me, but like again, because I didn't really know much about like gay people, so I didn't really understand that that's what they were trying to portray. But like again, it's just like obviously the network had to deal with like censorship, and like basically it just was not a thing where you were allowed to show gay couples in cartoons. But it's just like I don't know, it's cool that they did confirm it in this comic and showed them in an actual relationship, but I just felt like it should have been a lot more present in the show. And I don't know, I've never really been the biggest Korrasami shipper in the first place, but honestly, anything beats Mach Korra, like one of the worst ships of all time. Like their relationship between Korra and Asami is okay in this comic, I guess. Just not my favorite ship, but just I know a lot of people like it, but whatever. But anyway, geez, my voice is so terrible. I'm trying to get through this. I'm almost done. But anyway, yeah, Raiko in this book continues to be a terrible character. Him just being his normal politician-y self. Like, I can't tell if it's smart to portray a politician in this way, but also like It's very interesting because, like, it always was interesting to me how, like, the show portrayed Raiko as this just, like, basically it's asshole dude who, is not evil in any way, but just, like, sort of an asshole politician. And so I can't tell if that's, like, actually a really smart decision and really, daring for a cartoon show. But at the same time, it's like, he's not the most fun character to watch, as well, but, like, you know, it is very weird to me that Zhu Li is the one running for president. Like, I don't know. It's just like, why is Zhu Li running for president? She isn't even like I don't know. Is she even a United Republic citizen? And plus, she was like working for Varric, who was like a traitor who tried to kidnap the last president, and Kuvira, who was like the enemy of Republic City, and like that was just very odd for me. I felt like it would have made a lot more sense, honestly, if like Asami was the running for president instead. Like, she was a longtime resident of the city who had like had a hand in like it massively helping its development with like all these projects and trying to improve the city's infrastructure. So why didn't Asami run for president instead of Zhu Li of all people? Like, it's just very, very weird for me. So I get it. She's young and stuff, but like the Avatar series haven't like given us a set date on how young you can run for president in that city, so just very weird for me. But anyway, also another thing that I took issue with in this comic is like I don't really like the art. Like, I just thought it looked very rough at points. Like, the art style in this book is this comic book is like just really not the best. I didn't really like it too much, so that's one other problem I had. So not the biggest fan of Turf Wars. Now we move on to talking about Ruins of the Empire, the second Legend of Korra comic book. I will say this one, the second book, is definitely more interesting than the first. It just feels like more stuff that's actually going on with seeing the whole plot of this world and stuff, and so I definitely like this comic book, the second one, better than the first. The art style looks much better in this comic book. I will say, like before I said, like I really did not like the art style in the Turf Wars. But the art definitely looks much better, much more polished in this book, so it's something I do like. The story is definitely interesting in theory to like have to deal with the remains of Kuvira's empire. Commander Guam, Commander Guan, Commander Guan, the main villain, he seemed to be like a really good and intimidating villain when he was first introduced, where he believed in what he was fighting for and was willing to like die for it. But he just sort of, by the end of the story, Guan, for me, he just sort of petered out by the end, and sort of just like Kuvira did at the end of the series, honestly. But like I don't know, I just feel like there was more that they could have done with his character and make him a more compelling and threatening villain with what was set up. But I don't know, she just sort of became uninteresting by the end. It's just like I don't know, his plans ultimately mattered nothing. Anyway, there are definitely a lot of things that I like about this comic book, though, that are to be appreciated. Like, for example, Wu, Prince Wu, or former Prince Wu, he's actually a very compelling character in this book, which is something I did not expect, because I don't really like him in the main series. And it's just like, there's this great scene in the swamp that basically showcases where Wu is like, he sees these visions of his dead mother, basically, no, not dead mother, his great aunt, the Earth Queen, where it shows how he's basically having insecurities about like basically ruining his aunt's legacy and like taking down the monarchy and willingly giving up power, and like really like that scene, and the talk that Korra had with him afterwards. Just really like that, and really liked how they're giving more focus to his character and actually making him actually pretty good and compelling and not just comic relief. And just like, also Toph is in this comic book, and it's great. I love Toph. Literally, you add Toph to anything, I don't care what it is, like, and she just makes it better. And it's just like, it's so weird because Toph is like Toph is a character that does not necessarily need to be there in the story, but it's just like, she just like improves everything that is already there in the story. It's like, you can never go wrong with Toph, man. You can never go wrong with Toph. Like, any Toph that is there, like, you just, so good. Toph's such a good character. Oh, I love Toph so much. Anyway, Kuvira's story in this comic book is okay. I like that they're giving her sort of more focus after she, gave up her empire and everything. And, I did sort of like how she was forced to, work together with the work together with the characters, and it's like it's sort of like in the Search comic book, the Avatar: The Last Airbender one, where Azula was basically, the characters were forced to like accept her help in trying to find what's her face, Zuko's mother, but it's different in this. It's different in this comic book, obviously, because Kuvira is a different character. She's definitely more composed, and she's like willing to actually, sort of reflect on things, and just like sort of try to make amends and stuff. I gotta say, I don't really like how basically this comic book, this comic book laser focused on Kuvira's relationship to Sue too much, and like sort of trying to make it up to her, and but basically by the end of the comic book, what happens is like, she's taken in by the Beifong family and basically forgiven, or I guess like not maybe forgiven, but sort of accepted by Suyin for all the wrong she did. But it's just like I don't really know. It's sort of the whole Steven Universe thing where it's sort of the whole Steven Universe thing where, or like the She-Ra Princess Power thing where like characters like redeem themselves personally to what they did to one person, whereas it doesn't really address like all the harm that they did to, I don't know, the whole world at large. And it's like, that is one thing that bothers me. And also, I hated Kuvira's backstory in this book. Like, basically, it shows her backstory where, like, I hated her backstory. And I didn't understand, because, like, I thought Kuvira's whole thing was that, like, Kuvira's whole thing was basically that she was trying to make things more equal in the Earth Kingdom, and, like, trying to give more opportunities to people, because, like, she is, so I thought what they would go through with her backstories, but like basically showing how she had a very hard life where she was basically like cast aside by her parents and was an orphan who like had all these hard conditions growing up, and she wanted to, obviously when she became the leader of the Earth Empire, she was trying to like bring prosperity and equality to all. But then you see in her backstory where her backstory is basically that she had like all these temper tantrums and like hurt people even though she didn't mean to, and it's like, I find that completely uncompelling. It doesn't really seem to address any of her motivations growing up, and it's just like, I hated Kuvira's backstory in this comic book. Honestly, found it very uncompelling, so just did not like that. Also, the other thing about this comic book is I actually jived with Korosami more in this comic than in the last comic, because I just feel like, their relationship felt more casual and not the main focus, and I don't know, I just like to seeing them together in this comic. I thought the shit really worked for me, and it's also just great drama where Korra has to deal with, Asami's mind being taken over by Commander Guan, and so I really like that aspect of it. So honestly, yeah, it's a good comic book, but definitely not as good as it could have been, in my opinion. Definitely not as good as the second comic book of Avatar, The Search, which is just like legendary in terms of comic book status. But yeah, anyway, this is what I thought of. What's it called? Ruins of the Empire. So yeah. So close to the end. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Anyway, this is my review. Killing Joke. It's the comic book. It's the comic book by Alan Moore, the Batman comic, where basically this comic book kind of paved the way for modern interpretations of the Joker and Batman dynamic, with the Joker constantly trying to trying to basically prove a point to Batman that oh, we're all the same. We're all just these terrible people at heart, and it just takes one bad day to turn into like a villain. And basically I thought this comic book was kind of okay, honestly. It's pretty short and simplistic. It gets its point through interestingly enough, but it's just like I think my problem with this comic book is not necessarily anything having to do with the comic book itself, but it's just like, I've seen this kind of story and its dynamic between the Batman and the Joker play out in like so much other media by this point before reading this comic book, and it's just like, so I don't know, it's just like not super grabbing here when I've seen it so many times portrayed in other media. It's like, obviously, this was sort of the comic book to kind of start with that, trajectory to their characters and the dilemmas that would come between them in the future. But it's just like, honestly, The Killing Joke, it's a good comic book. I have not seen the animated adaptation to it. A lot of people say it's bad, with like the whole thing with this whole side plot with Barbara Gordon and just like having sex with Batman or whatever the fuck happens in the adaptation. But yeah, this comic book is good, but I didn't think it was amazing or anything. It's just like I have seen this dynamic play out between the Batman and the Joker before, so it's just like, I don't know. So yeah, That's what I thought of The Killing Joke. Now we get to Watchmen, another comic book by Alan Moore, and it's just, I don't know, I guess I was really into Alan Moore this year or whatever. But anyway, the year 2021 anyway. But yeah, I really enjoyed this comic book. I thought it was really good, honestly. Enjoyed it much better than The Killing Joke. I think it had a lot more going on. It's just, Watchmen is a really good look at the superhero genre, like through the lens of, realism, showing all these things that might actually, and people don't think about in the world where like superheroes exist. Like it asks a lot of legitimate questions about like vigilantism, like people going around in masks, like attacking perceived criminals outside the law. Like it shows how in many ways like these people can be considered like kind of thugs, and it draws like all these comparisons and disturbing similarities to like how the Ku Klux Klan were these masked individuals, these vigilantes going out and attacking perceived criminals and like degenerates in society, and how like that sort of says an interesting stuff about like the kind of people that would be interested in this thing in real life. And also one thing also how like people might get into superheroism through like for like maybe other reasons, for like not necessarily for wanting to do the right thing, but also like wanting attention, wanting money, like for fetishistic reasons, like wearing your underwear outside your pants. It's like really really interesting realistic look at like how superheroes might like actually come about and act in real life. And it's just like a really interesting aspect of this Watchmen comic book. So really like that aspect of it. This comic book also doesn't shy away from politics and how they would intertwine with like real life masked heroes, which is another aspect I definitely did like about this book. Honestly, it's just like Watchmen. It's just a very engaging story with very engaging characters, and it's just like there's a lot of stuff going on in it, and it's just like it does take a while to read through. Whereas like for example, The Killing Joke, like I said before, it's a much easier read to get through because it's much shorter. But at the same time, like Watchmen is there's like 12 chapters, and it just like takes a lot longer to get through. But at the same time, I feel like that's what makes it more interesting in many ways, and I really liked Watchmen for that. And just like also another thing about Watchmen is it's pretty funny in a lot of ways. Like there's these moments where, for example, like Night Owl is having coffee served to like the people he rescued, and it's just like or other moments like talking about how he had to modify his costume so he could take a shit in it, like just taking all these it's all these jokes at the expense of like the superhero genre, where like they're just really funny and pointing out how all these things like you don't think of when dealing with superheroes in like a realistic setting. And it just, I don't know, I just found this comic book pretty funny in a lot of ways. The one thing I do have an issue with, maybe not an issue, but was sort of mixed about, was the ending, where basically what happens is Ozymandias, he basically teleported this giant psychic squid creature to blow up New York and another city in like the Soviet Union stuff, and his goal was basically to try to make peace by uniting the world against this like threat that he was claiming to be aliens. And like just weird for me in a lot of ways. But I don't know, it's just like I don't know how to feel about it. Like I guess like the ending to the story is interesting. It's not bad, I wouldn't say, but it's just like did feel like I I don't know, like it's still an interesting resolution of the plot, and with how like things are left off with this whole question of, oh, is it worth it that he was able to create this temporary peace between the Soviet Union and the United States? And it's like I don't know, it's consistent with the themes of the story, but it's just like it is just really weird how there was this whole thing with a giant teleporting psychic squid that blew up a city, and I don't know, just whatever. Anyway, disregarding the ending, I did really like this comic book and really liked how everything played out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Watchmen. It's definitely one of the best comic books of all time, and deserves the reputation that it gets. So yeah. Now we finally get into talking about the Attack on Titan manga, and I already sort of talked about the manga in my video where I rewrote the ending. You can check that out on my channel. Where so safe to say, with this manga, I didn't really like the ending. But with that said, it's still a pretty damn good manga, you have to admit. Like Attack on Titan, Isayama just crafted such an unbelievable story where so many things came together like so well, and it was just an absolute joy to read through it. Especially one of the things I did really appreciate about about reading this manga, and one of the reasons why I read the manga in the first place was not just because people kept fucking spoiling everything for me, so I just had to, oh, come on, I just want to, and it's just like, because here's the other thing, I don't, but I like, like I said before, I read this manga because, like, people kept fucking spoiling it for me. Like, I guess I'm a hypocrite because, like, I've been spoiling almost everything I've talked about in this video. But, like, in regards to Attack on Titan, like, Attack on Titan is just a series and, a story so based around, like, its twists and things being a surprise that, like, it's one of those, Attack on Titan is just one of those stories where, like, you want to be surprised and you don't want to hear the spoilers. This series is something that you just want to go in blind, like, because it just adds to the experience so much. But at the same time, so many people are fucking spoiling it online. It's just like, oh my god, it's just like so annoying. Attack on Titan fans, just come on, stop spoiling everything in the comments of videos. And it's like, but anyway, so like I said before, though, it's not just because of like the spoilers that I decided to check out this manga. Another reason is because like I sort of heard about how like in season 3, the first part of it where they cut out a lot of this material in the manga. So one of my favorite parts of the manga that I really liked reading is, the Uprising arc, actually, where basically in the show they cut out a lot of material that was in the manga. It basically shortened the story, and I really didn't appreciate that. I know a lot of people say, like, oh, the Uprising arc in the manga dragged, and it was just, like, really uninteresting. I don't think that at all. I think it was really interesting how, like, everything was going on and giving these more focus to the characters and the politics of the world, and I really like that, and I really don't like how the anime shortened everything and made it more simplistic, even though it was still good. But honestly, another thing is, it's basically completely contrasted to, like, season 1 of the anime, where, like, season 1 of Attack on Titan gave more time to flesh things out, compared to the manga, which definitely moved a lot faster and sort of, was less detailed in a lot of places. So, I definitely think the first arc of the manga was not the best. I think the anime definitely spruced it up a lot more. It was just very weird to me how, like, basically there was this time skip after Aaron's mother got eaten, and it's just like time skips to like 5 years later after the training is already done, and then after the Battle of Tross, like, it just flashes back to parts of like their training in the cadet corps. But why didn't we see that linearly? And it's just like whatever. But yeah, anyway, reading from start to finish, another thing I really appreciated about the Attack on Titan manga is reading it from start to finish, you can really tell how the art style improved. Like, some of the panels by the end look legitimately really good, and like Isayama really improved his skills as an artist, whereas in the first chapters of the manga, just kind of the art didn't really look that good at all. But overall, the ending was definitely fumbled, the Attack on Titan manga, but there is still the opportunity, thankfully, to make some touch-ups in the anime adaptation. I think I've heard that even Isayama, like, wasn't the biggest fan of how he ended his series and found a lot of difficulty in it. So, again, Studio Mappa, take some of my suggestions for my video and how you could maybe improve the ending. So, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, so, yeah, definitely liked reading the Attack on Titan manga, even if the ending didn't exactly play out the best. But, yeah, that's what I thought about the Attack on Titan manga. And now, finally, we get to the final thing that I read this year, in the year of 2021, which was the Walking Dead comics. I read volumes 1 to 15 of the comic books. I haven't read the 16th and final volume, where, everything ends with the, Commonwealth arc and everything is resolved there. Haven't read that yet. There's 2 reasons. One is because I want to sort of see what happens in the show and not be, sort of go into the ending blind. And, the other thing is because they actually didn't have the 16th volume at the school where I was reading the volumes for free, because, that's sort of odd to me. Like, they had all the rest. Why didn't they have the final one? But whatever. Guess I'll have to buy it eventually after the series at AMC ends. Anyway, so reading these comics was an interesting experience. I think reading the comics definitely did help me with my rewrite series, where, I do a Walking Dead rewrite series on my YouTube channel. Check that out if you're interested. Where, I was sort of... It was interesting to see what the comic book, how it differed in a lot of aspects from the TV show, because, like, really, the Walking Dead comic is very different from the TV show in, like, so many ways. Like, for example, the character Daryl Dixon, like, who's, like, the most popular character on the show, he's, like, non-existent in the comic book. He doesn't exist. It's just, like, so weird to see how different it is in a lot of ways. But, honestly, in regards to Kirkman's work, I don't really think his series can hold a candle to George R.R. Martin's or Isayama's. Like, I just think their stories that they crafted were just much better in what I was reading. But don't get me wrong, the Walking Dead comics are still good, even if there are like not fantastic. To be honest, like I thought. Here's the thing. I think the comic did definitely get better as it went along. Like, I thought the first few issues were like not really the best, where it sort of felt like Kirkman was sort of finding his footing, and like a lot of things breezed by very quickly in the earlier issues, and where it just felt like the dramatic aspect of it was not really the best as it could have been. Because here's the thing, like, a lot of people like shit on the Walking Dead TV show and all. The TV show is so bad, like, such bad adaptation of the comic book, where it just like drags everything out. And, like, but here's the thing, like, a lot of like almost all of my favorite moments and my favorite scenes, my favorite plot lines from the first 2 seasons of the show are original to the show and weren't in the comic book. Because like all the stuff going on with Shane, that whole sequence where they were trapped underneath the cars, walking on the while they were on the highway, like everything with the whole escaping from Atlanta after they go back to find Merle, like everything about that, like basically all of the best aspects of seasons 1 and 2, in my opinion, were like original aspects that weren't in the comic book. And I feel like The Walking Dead can have like original storylines that are, and original things that were added that are really good and good adaptive changes. But at the same time, The Walking Dead TV show has also stumbled at many points, with some changes they make from the comic books being not too good. So, the comic, in my opinion, like one of the things I did think the comic like unabashedly did much better than the show, which was like the build up to all out war, which in the show, I am staunch in my hatred for the 7th season of The Walking Dead. I think season 7 was, a lot of people say like, oh, season 6, season 8, they were the worst, but no, season 7 for me, season 7 is definitely my least favorite season of The Walking Dead. I just did not like it in I don't know, it wasn't absolutely terrible. It was just like and you see how much better like the Walking Dead comic book did the lead up to All Out War. And it's just like speaking of which, All Out War, in my opinion, was my favorite arc probably in the comic book. I feel like that was where the comic book peaked in terms of the story. So like I said before, in regards to the Walking Dead comic, I feel like there are a lot of the show did make a lot of legitimate improvements to the comic books. Fleshing out some characters, did a lot of things better, but at the same time, there are things that also work better in the comic books. So, it's sort of a give and take where, in my opinion, Rick, played by Andrew Lincoln in the show, he's just in my opinion, he's a much better character, more interesting than his comic book counterpart. Whereas I feel like comic book Carl, he is probably a much better character than show Carl, where, I don't know, I just like, I never really liked Carl that much in the show version and how he was portrayed. Like, he didn't really get a ton of focus, whereas in the comic book, Carl is actually a pretty interesting character and gets a lot of focus, and I feel like he was portrayed much better in the comic book, and he sort of just got cheated out a lot of cool stuff in the comic book, where, I'm not even going to go through how he was handled in, like, All Out War, but anyway, in the show. But anyway, like I said before, I haven't seen the final volume, but I am interested to see how it ends with the show. First, I'm going to watch that final season, and then going to read the comic book. And Andrea, she's an awesome character in the comic book, by the way. I don't understand, like, why the show, like, did that to her, like, killing her off so early and just completely bastardizing her character. And just, like, she's really awesome in the book, and she just has a lot of these really cool moments. It's like, come on, show, what were you doing in season 3? But anyway, but I will say that also it is sort of a give and take where, Andrea, like, they skipped out on a lot of stuff in the show with her character, but at the same time, they had Carol, who is like completely lame in they had Carol in the show, who was like completely lame in the comic book, but like Carol Pelletier in the show is just like a complete Chad, and like is so awesome in so many ways. So it's sort of give and take. You have like the badass lady Andrea in the comic book, who's like not in the show basically at all, but at the same time, you take Carol Pelletier, who's like a nothing character in the comic book, and just make her super awesome in the show. So at the same time, it's a give and take. There are good things about the good things about the comic book that did better than the show, and good things about the show that did better than the comic book. So that is what I thought about the Walking Dead comic book series. So that's it. Finally, at long last, fucking finally, I finished talking about everything I watched and read in the year of 2021. This video is gonna be over 4 hours. Anyway, if you made it this long, thank you for watching so much of this fucking video. I was definitely, I was planning to have it come out on New Year's or at least January 1st, but I just, like, with everything I had to record for also my other channel, the Skeptical Skeptic channel, you know, the main one that I started talking about politics and everything, I just wasn't able to get everything done, and it just, like, took a long time to record this with everything, me not necessarily having time, me getting sick with fucking COVID, which I still have, and throat is killing me by now. But anyway, just difficult to get everything done on time, so I had to, but anyway, if you were watching, I did definitely hope you enjoyed watching, so be sure to definitely like, share, comment, subscribe, and have a happy new year, everyone. The year of 2022 is upon us now. Hopefully it'll be better than last year, but don't hold your breath. So anyway, and as always, remember, just because you can't feel love doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye.